It was supposed to be a day of joy, a family trip to the water park, a father, a mother, and 3 children, buckled into their SUV, dreaming of water slides and laughter. But by the time the sun rose higher that June morning, 4 of them were dead. Police arrived to a sight that would haunt them forever. A mother slumped in the passenger seat, 3 children shot in the back, and standing outside, bleeding and dazed, the husband and father, 32-year-old Christopher Vaughn. He was the only survivor and the only suspect. This is the story of Christopher Vaughn, the family man who claimed innocence, the husband who said he was betrayed, and the father condemned as a murderer. Before the headlines, there were love letters. Before tragedy, there were dreams. Christopher Vaughn grew up quiet, shy, a boy who preferred books and solitude over the noise of the world. Kimberly Phillips, by contrast, was radiant, outspoken, and quick-witted. When their paths crossed, she lit up the silence in his life. She was the first to make him feel truly seen. He was the steady anchor she believed she needed. Their romance was fast, their vows firm. Soon, 3 children filled their home with laughter and chaos. Abigail, Cassandra, Blake. To friends and family, they seemed perfect. Young love made good. But perfection is often a mask. Kimberly struggled with migraines, depression, and the side effects of medication. On good days, she was vibrant. On bad days, storms shook the household. Chris, burying himself in his IT work, withdrew. Neighbors saw smiles at block parties, school events, Christmas photos, but behind the walls, tension brewed. At night, when the house was quiet, Chris escaped into another world. Maps of the Yukon, survival forums, dreams of isolation in Canada. A world where no one demanded, no one judged, no one argued. One night, Kimberly, exhausted, head in her hands, whispered across the kitchen table, "You'd rather disappear into those woods than be here with us." Chris stared at the glowing map on his laptop. He said nothing. The slammed bedroom door, another night on the couch. Cracks deepened. But no one, not family, not neighbors, could imagine how far those cracks would go. And if you're just joining us, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Stories like this are heavy, but they must be told, so history is never forgotten. June 14th, 2007. It began like any other morning. Chris suggested a trip to the water park. Spontaneous, fun, a rare break. Kimberly agreed. They piled into the family SUV, the kids bubbling with excitement. But only a few miles from home, the dream unraveled into nightmare. Police dashcam footage shows the SUV pulled over near an exit ramp. Inside, the scene was unspeakable. Kimberly, shot in the head and chest. Abigail, 12, lifeless in the back. Cassandra, 11, slumped beside her sister. Blake, 8, his small body riddled with bullets. And Chris, bleeding from a wound to his leg, claiming confusion, claiming he couldn't remember. He told officers, "My wife, she just snapped. She shot the kids. She shot me." But investigators didn't believe him. At first, detectives considered shock, trauma. Maybe Chris was protecting Kimberly's memory. But as evidence unfolded, suspicion sharpened. Chris's wounds were superficial. A graze on the wrist, a nick on the leg. Self-inflicted, prosecutors argued. The gun? His. Bought only months earlier. Ballistics showed the shots came from the driver's side, Chris's side. Gunpowder residue stained his hands. Kimberly's wounds didn't match suicide. And his behavior afterward chilled detectives. Chris showed no panic, no collapse. Instead, he walked calmly, bleeding lightly while his family lay inside. Detective's voice in courtroom testimony. "I've seen grief. I've seen shock. This was neither. The story of the grieving father was unraveling. As investigators dug deeper, a darker picture emerged. Chris wasn't just browsing survival forums. He was planning an escape. His laptop revealed maps, cabin rentals in Canada, even articles about living off the grid. He'd taken secret trips to strip clubs, spending thousands while Kimberly raised the kids. Kimberly, meanwhile, kept journals. In them, she described loneliness, emotional distance, and her fear that Chris was slipping away. To the world, the Vaughns were the perfect family. Behind closed doors, Chris was already gone. Prosecutors would later argue he wanted freedom. He wanted the wilderness life, and to get it, he needed to erase the one thing tying him down: his family. August 2012, 5 years after the murders, Christopher Vaughn stood trial. The courtroom was heavy with grief. Kimberly's parents sat trembling as prosecutors described their daughter's final moments. The state painted Chris as a selfish man who valued freedom over family, a man who coldly executed his wife and children to chase a fantasy of isolation. The defense fought back. They pointed to Kimberly's medications, her depression, her erratic behavior. They argued she snapped, that she pulled the trigger. Chris, they said, was a victim, not a monster. But the evidence was unforgiving. Jurors saw photos of the SUV. They heard testimony about the angle of the shots. They learned about the survivalist obsession, the strip clubs, the quiet withdrawal. Piece by piece, the image of a grieving father crumbled. After 5 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated less than an hour. Guilty on all 4 counts of murder. Christopher Vaughn was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Kimberly's family, the verdict was a mix of relief and devastation. They had lost their daughter and grandchildren, and now they were forced to confront the truth that the man they welcomed into their lives had destroyed them. Reporters asked Kimberly's mother how she felt. Her voice cracked. Justice, but no peace. Christopher never admitted guilt. Even as he was led away in shackles, he maintained his wife was responsible. To this day, he claims he loved his children, that he could never harm them. But the evidence speaks louder than denial. The Vaughn case remains one of Illinois' darkest family murders. It's a story of betrayal, of a man who wanted freedom more than family. For many, it is also a chilling reminder. Sometimes the greatest danger is not outside, but inside the home. Behind smiles, behind photographs, behind closed doors, secrets can grow into tragedies that change everything. And for the surviving families, the wounds never fully heal. Kimberly's parents visit the graves often, their daughter and 3 grandchildren buried side by side. 4 lives stolen, 4 futures erased. Christopher Vaughn will spend the rest of his life behind prison walls. He traded his family for freedom and ended with neither. But the story of Kimberly, Abigail, Cassandra, and Blake lives on. A story of innocence lost, but also of truth prevailing. Because in the end, justice does not erase the pain, but it ensures the truth is never silenced.